The Extortion Trap: How Tehran Miscalculated Its Way Out of the Middle East Future by Ward Ethan Mercer, July 31st, 2026. The situation on the ground has fundamentally changed. What many believed, including myself, might become the beginning of diplomacy was actually the end of an era. The multi-day pause in fighting was not the first step toward peace, it was the final test of an old strategy. And that strategy failed. When the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps launched ballistic missiles toward American forces in Jordan, they did more than violate a ceasefire. They destroyed the last remaining confidence that temporary pauses in fighting could lead to a negotiated settlement. For months, Washington and its regional partners believed carefully managed diplomatic pauses, whether brokered through Islamabad, Muscat, or other intermediaries, might eventually create an off-ramp. Instead, Tehran repeatedly used those pauses to regroup, rearm, and strike again. The lesson was unmistakable. A ceasefire that simply becomes another opportunity to prepare for the next attack is no ceasefire at all. For Washington, the operating assumptions have changed. The search for another temporary pause is effectively over. The emphasis has shifted toward sustained military enforcement. The extortion fallacy. At the center of Tehran's strategy was one enormous assumption, that control over the Strait of Hormuz meant permanent leverage. The logic appeared simple: threaten global shipping, create panic in the energy markets, force the West to make concessions. But that calculation misunderstood something fundamental. There is a difference between sensitivity and tolerance. The global economy depends on Hormuz. Because of that, the international system has very little willingness to accept a permanent threat against it. Instead of frightening the world's major powers into compromise, Iran gave them justification to remove the threat altogether. Rather than dividing its opponents, Tehran unified them. The result has been a growing coalition legitimacy for operations targeting coastal missile sites, naval facilities, and maritime surveillance systems. What was intended as leverage has now become justification. The superpower shield that wasn't. For years, Tehran assumed that close relationships with Beijing and Moscow created a protective umbrella. But when military pressure intensified, that assumption collapsed. China purchases discounted Iranian oil. Russia benefits from inexpensive drones. Those are transactions. They are not security guarantees. Neither country has shown any willingness to commit military forces, risk naval confrontation, or jeopardize their own economic interests for the sake of defending IRGC command structures. When the pressure arrived, Tehran discovered something important. Economic partners are not necessarily military allies, and in a crisis, those are two very different things. Tactical desperation. Perhaps nowhere is Iran's deteriorating position more visible than in its attempts to compensate for strategic weakness with tactical improvisation. Reports indicate efforts to acquire large numbers of Chinese-made shoulder-fired air defense missiles. These weapons have value against helicopters or aircraft flying at relatively low altitude, but they offer little protection against stealth aircraft, long-range cruise missiles, or precision-guided weapons launched far beyond their reach. It is a solution to the wrong problem, like placing a bandage over a major arterial wound. The same pattern appears in the information space. As physical successes become more difficult to demonstrate, state media have increasingly relied on AI-generated imagery, edited satellite photos, and exaggerated battle damage claims. When real military victories become scarce, the incentive grows to manufacture symbolic ones. Washington's decision point. The United States now finds itself at a critical decision point. Having tried diplomatic pauses only to watch Tehran burn them, Washington can no longer attempt to work with or negotiate with the Iranian government as it currently operates. This leaves U.S. planners facing a stark binary. Accept a stalled attritional war, allowing a low-intensity, months-long trade conflict in the strait that continuously drags down global shipping, spikes energy prices, and plays directly into Tehran's exhaustion strategy, or execute total kinetic suppression, continuously target and eliminate offensive capacity until the regime's military options are physically zeroed out. Washington has clearly chosen the latter. Furthermore, there is now a strong likelihood that the U.S. and its partners will move to permanently eliminate the IRGC operationally. The objective would not be a post-2003 Iraq-style ground occupation or a nation-building experiment across 85 million people. Instead, such a strategy would aim to systematically excise the IRGC military-industrial apparatus, cutting away the faction driving foreign aggression, while leaving a broken, workable civilian government structure in place. Stripped of its offensive arm and facing internal economic collapse, that remaining civil structure will have no operational choice but to sit down in Muscat or Islamabad and accept a binding, heavily unequal compliance agreement. The isolated perimeter. Tehran did not get outmaneuvered by a superior diplomatic trap. It backed itself into a corner, burned its own bridges, and proved that international extortion is not a viable long-term strategy. As joint U.S. and regional coalition strikes continue to degrade IRGC command nodes and coastal arrays, the post-conflict architecture of the Middle East is coming into sharp focus. It is an integrated security framework linking the U.S., Gulf partners, and regional allies, designed specifically to monitor, contain, and bypass a weakened Iran. By choosing bad faith brinkmanship over genuine negotiation, the regime in Tehran didn't secure its hold on the Strait of Hormuz. It guaranteed the operational destruction of the very forces it relied on to project power. The Mercer Ledger is an independent, listener-supported platform. You can back our work at ko-fi.com/WEMercer. That's ko-fi.com/WEMERCER. And thanks for listening.